Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question was suggested by a viewer. Thanks to Lycrast for this one. Amy uses True Polymorph to turn her Ajani's Pridemate into a copy of Hand of Vecna. Afterwards, she exiles that one and a normal everyday Eye of Vecna with the Book of Vile Darkness. What happens? First things first, this is a totally legal play to make. One of the things that happens when you copy an object is you copy the name. And that means that even though the thing that you exiled physically has the words Ajani's Pridemate printed at the top, as far as the game is concerned, the name of that card is Hand of Vecna. So exiling it will fulfill the condition of exiling a permanent named Hand of Vecna. So that works out pretty well. And I've got some more good news for you if you're the sort of person who likes really cool stuff. That's right, the answer to this question is the coolest thing possible. You can see on the text on the Book of Vile Darkness that you look at the exiled cards. As you can see here, that means that the game looks at the characteristics those cards have while they're in the exile zone, not what characteristics they had when they were on the battlefield. Of course, in the exile zone, Ajani's Pridemate isn't copying anything, so it'll give its own normal abilities to the Vecna token that's created. Very awesome. Now, I spent a lot of time trying to come up with the coolest possible ability to splice onto Vecna this way. Unfortunately, as you can see here, I didn't really come up with anything that promising. However, I really hope that somebody here in the comments will be able to do better than I did. That said, there are a couple of really interesting scenarios that I wanted to talk about related to this one. First of all, you've got something like Diamond Knight. If you have a Diamond Knight that you exile this way, what will happen? And unfortunately, the answer to this one is it's not going to work out the way you're hoping. So, any triggered ability means anything that uses the word at, when, or whenever. And as you can see, the ability that lets you choose a color with Diamond Knight isn't a triggered ability. Because it is not a triggered ability, that means that Vecna will not have it and will not have a color chosen for it. Now, because this ability is linked to the ability that gives +1/+1 counters, that means that Vecna will not get +1/+1 counters from any spells that you cast, even colorless ones. As you can see in the rule that I pulled up, the game does know the difference in between colorless and undefined in this specific type of situation. So that didn't work out very well. But there is one more really awesome thing that I wanted to talk about. Did you know that the Book of Vile Darkness already has received errata? I brought up the current Oracle text on screen now. The change is pretty subtle, but it's there. Rather than gaining the ability after it enters the battlefield, Vecna will have the ability as part of its original creation. What's the difference? Well, there's two very important consequences to this. The first one is triggered abilities that trigger when Vecna enters the battlefield will actually work. Anytime something happens in the game, for example, a token getting created, the game immediately checks to see what the game state looks like, and to see if there's any triggered abilities that exist, and that match what just happened. Now, if Vecna does not have the triggered ability when this enters the battlefield, as it enters the battlefield, but rather only gains that triggered ability after it's already on the battlefield, then the game has missed the opportunity for that triggered ability to trigger. So, it needs to be created with the triggered ability when this enters the battlefield, such as the one that's on Eye of Vecna, in order for that ability to actually function and do anything. This would be pretty embarrassing if you didn't get that triggered ability, and it's probably the reason for the change. The other very important consequence that this has is that the triggered abilities are part of the copyable information of Vecna. Let me explain. You probably already know that copy effects do not take into account any other types of continuous effects when they're deciding what the copyable information of the thing that they're copying is. That means that if, for example, you had another true polymorph and you wanted to make something into a copy of Vecna, you would not get the triggered abilities if the triggered abilities were granted as a continuous effect on Vecna, which is what the wording, then it gains those triggered abilities, would imply. Because it has the triggered abilities and not gains them, that implies that they're part of the actual copyable information of the Vecna token itself. So if you were going to copy that token, you would get the triggered abilities on the copied one. So that's another thing that works the way people probably expect it to, now that we've made that slight change in errata. So that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again tomorrow for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.